Hey, what's up guys, Pratham here. So I've been using the iPhone SE for about a week now, and I have some thoughts. Now, TLDR, it's a great phone with some pitfalls, but it's still worth it. But if you want to know the details, let's get into it. Alright, starting off with the most controversial part of this phone, the build and the screen. Alright, so I personally think the build is mostly great. There are a few pitfalls, but it feels okay in the hands, nice aluminum rails. And it's a good size. Phones nowadays are too big. However, there are two things that I don't like. First of all, I know they had to do rounded sides because the iPhone 8 using the same supply lines and stuff, but I prefer the boxy sides of the iPhone 4 days and the new iPhone 12 series. And the fingerprinted glass on the back, it's so slippery, I don't like it. So, got a skin from D-Brand, it looks perfect, love it. And we can't talk about the build without talking about the screen. So, it is a 4.7-inch LCD display. Now, it is an LCD, it's not an OLED, you're not going to get perfect blacks, but it is the best LCD on the market, and I think it is very good for the price. Now, I know the Pixel 4a and the OnePlus Nord, and they all have their fancy 90Hz or 60Hz OLED displays, but they had to make compromises elsewhere. This is where Apple made a compromise, and this is what we have to deal with in the budget phones. However, I do have one note. If they had made the bezels even 20 or just 30% slimmer, I think it would have looked that much better. And now, I don't know about how displays are manufactured. I do think that wouldn't be that much of a increase in cost. And again, the screen, it isn't made of titanium or whatever. Glass is glass, and glass breaks. Say it with me. Glass is glass, and glass breaks. So it is a good idea to put a screen protector on here. So instead of breaking your $100 screen, you might just break like the $10 screen protector. So I normally buy a 2 or 3 pack because I do happen to drop my phone a lot. Alright, and let's talk about the biometric. Touch ID is back. I love it. I hate Face ID. And Touch ID works in more scenarios than people give it credit for. If your hands are wet, Touch ID will still work. If they're a bit dusty, it'll still work. If you got like hot sauce on your fingers, it'll still work. It's better than most people give it credit for. And given that we're living in mask life, I do think that it actually might be an improvement over Face ID for the next while. And speaking of fast, this phone now has the A13 in it. And now, the A13 by itself isn't that important for its actual performance gains, but I think, one, the battery efficiency is much better, and we'll talk about that later. But I think more than anything, it's the increased RAM in here that makes stuff feel faster. Now, if you're on an iPhone 7 or 8, you won't really be able to tell the difference. But iPhone 6s or lower, for example, I'm coming from the original SE, it just feels that much faster. And that's always appreciated. So, that awkward moment where you're waiting for like 2 seconds for that app to load, you can avoid that now, and that just feels so good inside. And it just feels fluid, even though that it's not some 120Hz Quad HD display, it just feels fluid, and that's what most people care about, not the specs. Alright, so the A13 definitely helped with battery life. I was consistently getting 5+ hours of screen on time, and I never could kill this phone in a day, even with my extended use, right? So normally what I do is just like my watch, I keep my phone between 25 and 70%, because quarantine life, I'm always near a charger, so whenever I'm sitting down not doing anything, I'll just place my phone on a charger or something like that. But I wanted to know what it would be like in real world use. So one night, I plugged my phone in overnight. It hurt my heart to do it, but I did. I woke up with 100%, unplugged my phone, and then used it throughout the whole day and resisted the urge to plug it in. And at about 9 or 10 o'clock, I hit 10%. So in 12 hours, this thing drained 90%. And I think that's honestly impressive. And if you're buying this kind of phone, you're probably not going to do a lot of extensive use. And sure, you can wirelessly charge it, but that's only 5 watts. It's so slow. So do the right thing, plug it into a wired charger. Anker's making their 20-watt nano charge brick with the prongs as well. So that's that thing is super cool, honestly. I really want to get my hands on one of those for when I start traveling again. But yeah, use a wire. You don't need this fancy wireless charging thing. If you want to hear me rant about this for 3 to 4 minutes, there's a whole separate video on that. I'll link it in the description. But yeah, I think both in terms of charging and battery life, this phone is good. And now the cameras. Now this is the one area where I was honestly impressed and annoyed. Right, so this thing has one 12-megapixel shooter, and it's great. Like, I was just taking pictures out with it just every day. Things are sharp, things are contrasty, but nothing's overdone. It's not like Samsung. But yeah, it's good. There's nothing to complain about here, just with everyday image quality. And portrait mode. I mean, I get why they couldn't make it so that portrait mode works on everything. Apple just doesn't have Google's AI sort of thing. But they did make it so that portrait mode works on people. So I find that exceptionally nice. But if I need real bokeh, you can't beat an actual DSLR. You never can. You can just get really close. And the one thing that annoyed me so much, night mode. Right, this phone can do night mode. The iPhone 11 can do night mode, and it's about the chipset. It's about how you process it. Apple could have allowed this, but they didn't. Now, I understand why they did this. If they start putting too many features in this thing, it'll cannibalize the sales of the rest of their phones. But it just seemed so petty, and I didn't expect that from a company like Apple. Or maybe I should have. I don't know. Anyway, that was my one sort of annoyance with the camera that I thought was justified. The rest of them were just little pet peeves that, I mean, for this price point, you have to deal with. So, is it worth it? Now, if you want a budget phone, you like iOS, you have an Apple Watch or whatever, you bought some AirPods a while back, I think this is going to be fantastic. You're going to love it, right? Because there's nothing inherently wrong with this phone that makes you want to rip your hair out. Now, if you are an Android user, you probably want to stick with Android unless you're really fed up with Android, which I don't understand why anyone would be. Then the Pixel 4a is a great alternative. It also has a great camera, better display. However, it does only have Snapdragon 730G, so that's not exactly the greatest chip on the market. It will be a bit slower, but that's the compromise that it makes. So overall, even with its pitfalls, I still think it is 100% worth it. Now, if you want a little bit more, for $100 more, you can get the iPhone XR. And then for $100 more, you can get the iPhone 11. Then $100 more, the 12 mini, 12 Pro, 12 Pro Max. And it goes on. Apple is becoming Samsung in that they're introducing a phone at every price point, and they all run iOS. So Apple is giving you a ton of options now. And I, as someone who likes to study the market, see like different sort of deals and stuff, I really appreciate that. So that's pretty much it for this video. If you did like it, or if it did convince you to upgrade, let me know down in the comments section, which have been fairly empty recently. Come on, people, comment. Seriously, I'm bored. Hit the like button. Yeah, it's a very, very smart thing to do. Amazing investment. Subscribe. We actually lost subscribers since the last video, so only slightly salty about that. And yeah, just make sure to recommend this channel to more tech nerds, because we're just trying to grow. Anyway, I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.